53-man roster for my Broncos, I actually had Katzis making the 53.
Nice. Well, isn't it amazing though, where you look at a player like this, over 1,000 yards, he's fast enough, he's big enough, and saying he's got 10 touchdowns, that means he's going to be good in the red zone too. And to where these guys are like actually not getting drafted, which is pretty amazing. And you know what? What do you think Mims is, if he's in his last year of his contract? Hey, what's up, Paul? What do you think he's going to ask? How much do you think he's going to ask for? Do you have any idea, or you have a range
in terms of what Mims is going to ask for? We haven't even heard that type of we haven't even heard that type of information yet from him. But and frankly, that actually makes me want him to stay on the team even more, because that shows that he's a consummate professional, right? He's intentionally kept a lid on that stuff, and I have to give, that's a golf clap moment as far as I'm concerned, because that shows that he's a professional and he's not allowing his camp to start running their mouth and acting as a distraction and that sort of thing. So I personally don't see that as a knock on him. I see that as actually quite a positive. But our problem with Mims is going to be, he's going to be a very coveted return guy, because he's a top 3 return man in the NFL. Right. All day long. And any team who has a poor or even average return game will overpay for his services simply to have him on the team.
And you have any idea what your cap is going to be kind of sitting like next year? Or
haven't looked that far out. I can say right now that as of June 1st, we're going to be a little bit over 25 million available cap.
There's a potential then to do an extension at some point during the season if he plays well.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. There's also been some talk about the Broncos taking that cap and intentionally trying to roll it into next year, knowing that we likely are going to have at least some initial discussions about extending Bo Nix, and or knowing that we're going to be in a bit of a challenging spot as it comes to our tackles and potentially guard positions, depending on who we like and who we don't like.
Right. So, but you got most of your guys locked up, which is good. So
McGlinchey is getting quite long in the tooth. Garrett Bowles is certainly no spring chicken at this point either. And Ben Powers is, I mean, I'm surprised he's still on the team this year, let alone sticking around for next year.
Well, yeah. Bowles filled the holes. But, but that's what it used to call him. But, boy, now Bowles is looking good. So, I don't know. I think he's at the top of his game right now. I don't really care. A lot of these
I agree with that.
Offensive linemen, they can play for years. So, as long as he stays healthy, then, I think he's going to be there for quite a long time.
You have some concerns with these guys, though, that get into a certain age bracket as even tackles. And by the way, offensive tackles do have, as you said, a reasonable shelf life. But the challenge that you end up with these tackles, though, is they typically have, you keep on hearing the quarterback cliff with Tom Brady and everything else, right? Well, a lot of these tackles literally have a cliff. 1 year or even one part of the season, they're good, and they literally just bomb, and they never recover. The trick is you don't want them on your team when they hit the cliff and bomb.
Right.
Because they are such a critical cog in your team, especially the left tackle and right tackle in today's NFL, with the speed of the edge rushers, that you need those cogs on the outside to lock up and secure those edges so that your quarterback's not getting smacked in the mouth every other play.
Oh, absolutely. And, And it seems like this was a pretty good year. You look at the beginning of the draft, there was a big run on offensive linemen. And so I think every team is,
What was it?
you
First
need the big boys.
16 picks. Well, hold on. I want to get it right. I think it's of the first in the first round, something like 20 picks or something, or 17 picks, something crazy like that, were offensive and defensive line. Like, it was insane.
Yeah, it's kind of like the second round. The second round seemed like it was all tight ends. Everyone wanting to go to the
Yeah.
12 or 13 personnel. So it really pushed a lot of guys back. And I think that's part of the reason why so many guys were taken, that these guys are getting pushed out, of being drafted. So it's a good thing for, all the teams out there if you can get the UDFAs that you really, really want. So
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So either way, I do think that Raider Nation, you guys do need to pay attention to Colby Katzis. I would be surprised if my Broncos don't retain him in some way. And I do think that he is going to be a pretty lethal return force for my Denver Broncos. I am also aware that our special teams coach, Darren Rizzi, is absolutely enamored with this kid. Like,
well,
absolutely just over the moon for this guy. And I think so.
with Mims coming off of injury, last year, I mean, it makes sense to number one, to have that depth. If you don't, or maybe don't even want to use Mims as a kick returner, this kid could show out and go, why put one of our better assets at wide receiver, and the guy who does all your trick plays and will run around the corner and all that stuff? Why put him out there and expose him to that risk? Because, you saw what happened last year.
Yeah.
So why not? Why not give that kid a shot, right from day one, and let him, tote the rock.
Yeah, and that's some of the thinking. That's some of the thinking in that too. That is exactly the thinking right now within some of Broncos country, looking at this, saying, if this guy does really step it up and really take over that area, he could take over on that punt and kick return kind of role, and then allow him to then grow into a wide receiver by learning the route tree and really expanding his role that way, as opposed to, giving him the playbook and said, "Hope you catch up, Rook."
Right?
You know what I mean?
Well,
and go from there.
I think he's going to get it. It sounds like he's going to get a shot at it. I mean, it's just a good fit.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's like I said, he's my 1B. You asked me who kind of my favorite is. My favorite's coming up next, but the Katzis there is my 1B. He is a guy that I'm really, really stoked about as a as a prospect on my team. And just for the record, I have a total of 5 I'm going to be bringing up this evening, and I felt that these were very strong candidates for my Denver Broncos to either make the 53 or to be an absolute lock to make it onto our practice squad, or perhaps worst case scenario, show out in preseason and have someone else pick them up because they like them. So we'll wait and see kind of what goes on there.
Yeah,
Jack,
I got
over
a
to
few of
you
those
and
too.
Nav for your take
My
there.
my next one is a wide receiver as well, and he also went to Indiana. He was the number 3 wideout. His name is EJ Williams. Again, he's just got that connection. Number one, he's an Indiana boy, so he's got the connection with Fernando and Hemby. And for you guys who showed up late, Hemby was my number 1, and we've already gone over him. He's a big kid. He's 6'3", 205. I've seen multiple sources in the way of what he runs. So he runs anywhere that's 40 between a 4.4 and a 4.9. So kind of, but the majority that I've saw was a 4.7. So I'm going to kind of roll with that. But
4.37. 4.37.
4.37. Wait, is that Nav in the house? Oh, you're in the house.
It's 4.37.
Hey, what's up, brother? I was looking at the chat.
Bro.
Well, I didn't even know you were on. I was in. I had the chat up, so just to see it because I'm on my cell phone. But yeah, he had. You know, you got to figure you got one wide receiver that went in the first round, and then they had Surratt that went, I think, in the fourth round. So being able to get, you know, somebody that, you know, that knows Fernando, I thought that was a really nice signing. I think he's got a shot because of connection. He had 30 receptions. So as a number 3 wideout, he had 30 receptions, 400 yards, 6 TDs. So he was productive for the time that he got. So what I noticed with him watching his film, he's more of just like a pure outside guy. So he does need to like learn, you know, more of the route tree to get inside versus just being on the exterior. He's fabulous since he's tall, on the 50-50 balls, all contested catches. He's got good hand-eye coordination. He's definitely a red zone threat. That's a lot of the ways they use them in Indiana. So I like that, you know, with Mendoza, getting him down near that goal line. He's good. He's decent at the deep threat, you know, getting out there. But one thing I did do when Mendoza got the ball to him is that I counted, you know, the Mississippis. So most of the time, it was, think about 4 out of the 10 plays. It took 5 Mississippis for Fernando to actually go to him. So you could tell he wasn't the first option, you know, between those other receivers. And, you know, he had a lot of time for him to get down the field to throw him those outside and high post passes. Needs to refine the route running. Like I mentioned, he needs to learn how to go inside, not just be on an outside guy. He's a little bit on the injury prone side. So it's that's one of the negatives. And let's see, a lot of breakdown. So when he got open, yeah, it's like I said, a lot of breakdown plays is when Fernando would actually go to him. But I like his size. I think he's fast enough. And as getting him as a UDFA, I got to say, you know, there's a potential for him to actually. Oh, you're gonna do it, Ed? Do it, Ed. I don't know if you were in the chat at that moment there now, but yeah, Richie said if he would he'd wear a Raider shirt if there was enough money and like a super chat.
Oh, dude, don't do that. I promise, bro.
I know. I was thinking of you because I'm like, oh,
you'll be head to toe if you throw that out there. You'll be head to toe. I promise you. You'll be head to toe in Raider shit, bro. I promise you. Don't throw that stuff out there. Be careful. Your Broncos, your Broncos are tightwads. Us Raiders, oh, we'll throw it out there for a shock factor all day long.
And you know, Richie, I don't know if you know this, but this guy has no problem in doing the supers. I'll tell you that. How many? Just for curiosity, Nav, how many Bronco shows have you sent supers out on?
Well, let's see. I think Bill had to do with the mask on, right? Or something. I don't know. But
You think about Bill and Spence?
Bronco show, and I was their first. I was a Raider fan. It was their first super chat. Several of them, actually. I just kept walking around to Broncos shows and super chatted and saying, only thing you can say is that a Raider fan's the first one that super chatted. So, congratulations to you.
Well, that guy had that Mexican, you know, wrestling mask, wasn't it? For that cap.
Yeah, I don't know who that dude is, to be honest with you.
I don't know. I've only seen the show like once.
It was freaking hilarious, though. There's a cross-eyed dude. There's a cross-eyed dude at MHRT too. He's actually very smart in football, but he's like when he talks out the side of his, talks this way or something. I don't.
Young kid,
good. Huh?
Young kid, brown hair.
I don't know, something like that. I've been busier than a one-legged man on an ice patch today, so I'm about over it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I bet. It's like, dude, you're 55.
Long drive, pulled the wife's freaking Spider out of the freaking garage, got it on a freaking trailer, and I thought that I had a bigger trailer. Yeah, I don't have room to put anything else on the trailer. So, winch was required. It was, yeah. I told Richie, I'm like, dude, I don't know. I'm gonna try. You know what I mean? Yeah, Bronco Libre, that's the one.
There it is.
Yep.
So, are you gonna hire? Are you just trying to do this all by yourself?
Oh no, I'm hiring movers. I just need to get all the motorized equipment out. I mean, I had to drag my wife's freaking pride and joy out of the barn because she hasn't used it in so long. I'm going, okay. All right, hold on. I gotta go. I'll stick put. I'm gonna mute them all.
All right. Well, it's good to see Nav on here. I'm glad he's getting his stuff done. So that was my number 3 guy. So EJ Williams, Indiana. I just think it's a good fit, and I think he's got a shot because the Raiders, which we all thought the Raiders were going to do in this draft, there was 2 things. We thought they were going to address defensive tackle really early. They didn't do it until the 7th round, and the other one was we thought they were going to address wide receiver, and they didn't even touch a wide receiver. So there is some potential there for him, but I just don't know because he's not really a special teamer, which again, I'll talk about a special teamer a little bit later. So who's your number 1? Are you on mute?
Just want to thank the super chat here. Longtime fan of the show, comes in every week for the show, drops in Broncos country and interacts really well. Do want to give absolute credit and shout out for Broncos country. I agree. And with that in mind, I'm going to jump into my 1A of our UDFA signings. My 1A that we brought in as a UDFA is Iowa State offensive tackle Tyler Miller. He is 6'9".
Iowa, you just think of big boy, corn fed.
Yeah, he is 6'9", 339 pounds.
Oh, Jesus!
He started in 12 games last season at right tackle in college. And he holds a record for starting 39 straight games in his college career while at Iowa State. His UDFA signing bonus with my Denver Broncos was $275,000.
Oh, that just
now,
tells
to
you
put
right
that
there.
in
That's
perspective,
huge.
Yeah. So that is just for the collective group that's on the show here. That is an enormous signing bonus for a player to get pulled over to your team. And a couple other things that I think are really important, which I think shows a combination of character and what you're going to probably get as work ethic from this young man, is the coach or his college coach is on the record saying that he was the most mature man in the building, and that includes every single coach as well. He is also married with 2 kids.
So he's an adult. He's just not a kid. Yeah, he's 2 kids, so he's looking at.
Yeah, he's not a kid. Yeah. Yeah, he's an adult. He's going to be the adult in the room. He's going to be the guy that he has something to earn when he gets to the NFL, and a mission to ensure that he is providing for his family. And needless to say, I'm super stoked for this guy here. Now at 6'9", 339, that puts him a little bit taller than McGlinchey, who's 6'8", if I'm not mistaken, or six
I think
foot
you're right.
seven. I can't. I have to double check. But
I think he's
McGlinchey's a
6'8".
very tall dude as well. Yeah. And McGlinchey is at the right tackle position. Now, this young man here happens to be a right tackle. I find that rather fascinating. So I am really, really excited about this guy coming into our team. I'm going to be honest. I'm actually more excited about this guy coming into our team than our draft pick. That was an offensive tackle, um, in the draft, who was a little bit of a later round guy, and that guy's name was
Cage.
Cage
Yeah.
Casey. Yeah. Now Casey, a lot of guys were really high on him, but for me, I actually believe when you look at Casey's stats and compare them uh, to Tyler Miller's here, you're going to see that Tyler Miller's stats are actually a little bit better than Casey's actually. And so this, in my opinion, could well be a case
So
of Miller.
does
Miller
Casey, does
being a
he play
guy that could
tackle or
well
is
be
he
that
or
swing
interior?
tackle, future starter. Casey has been slotted as a guard at the NFL level. He's got a little bit of crocodile arm syndrome, a little bit shorter arms
Hmm.
for his size. Whereas Tyler Miller is a true tackle. He is a true proportionately sized tackle coming out of the draft. So
So how
um,
many guys do you think they'll
six
keep on
foot
the O
nine,
line?
339, probably can put on probably another 10, 20, 10 pounds or so.
Another 10 pounds after 339. So you're talking around almost a 350 range. That's a big boy. Oh, I think Richie froze. Yeah, I mean, if you can put that type of mass on, I mean, that's just a massive human being. Oh, you're back.
Yeah, well, you're 6'9", so your 6'9" frame can certainly handle 340 or so. I mean, that's a big boy. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not sitting there saying, "Hey, dude, that's a small guy," but at 6'9", your frame can manage that kind of weight,
Right.
right? Like, you can absolutely manage that kind of weight, and it's not like he's 6'9" and he's not like 6'9" and like 490. The guy's 6'9" and 339, which means he's going to be lean and strong. You know what I mean? So he's still like, the point is that you bulk him up, but you put muscle on him as opposed to kind of like just pure bulk, and let the guy be that long, lengthy, athletic mauler on the right hand side of the offensive line to take over for Mike McGlinchey, so that we can end up in a position where he maybe steps in for McGlinchey maybe near the end of the year, or if he gets hurt, and then see where it goes from there. And if the guy looks like an absolute beast, then the future looks bright for my Denver Broncos at that point in terms of bringing in and developing tackles, because he would be the third developmental tackle that is looking to be one heck of a player.
Well, you can never have enough offensive linemen. Just ask DZ on that one. That's all they did in their
Nope.
draft is
I mean,
get
keep in
guys to
mind,
back them up.
yeah. So you look at my Denver Broncos. Alex Palczewski is a natural right tackle and stepped in for McGlinchey, and our run game got better actually when Palcho stepped in at the right tackle spot. Palcho then stepped in for Ben Powers last year, who got hurt, and there was zero drop off statistically or eye test at the left guard spot when Palcho stepped in. Um, And then we also have the guy that looks like a Viking, who is Frank Crum. He's the dude that's got the blonde hair and caught the ball in the end zone at the end of last season for us to get us over the finish line and make it through deeper into the playoffs. He's an athletic freak as well. He's about 6'8", 6'9" himself, and he can move very well. And he's a big boy as well. And then add on to that room into that group, this guy here, Tyler Miller, and we have 3 tackles that are versatile and can play most positions across the offensive line. So that's a good problem to have.
That's a very nice problem to have. Again, you can never have never have
So
enough
that is
offensive linemen, defensive linemen.
No, and especially when you have at least 3 of them that are either aging or coming up to the end of their contract this year, where you're likely going to be wanting to move on. It's very important to have an offensive line pipeline where you can maintain that depth and quality of play. So that is my 1A of my Denver Broncos UDFA class. I got 2 more to go, but over to you.
All right. So the next guy I have on my list, which I'm going to go over one other thing right now too. I was really shocked, and this kind of leads into it. So the Raiders, since your guys' last show, they did make a surprise cut in the way of Charles Snowden, which I was really kind of surprised by it, because he was a guy who came out of nowhere and he played well enough to make the first the practice squad, then the roster. And I just think they cut him. And I think he kind of wanted out. And when Max's, trade didn't go through, they already signed Quinny Pay. And then you draft the defensive end in the 3rd round, and you got Malcolm Kuntz. I just think he kind of saw the writing is on the wall, like where he falls within the depth chart of the team. So they let him go. McClendon Kursko, offensive lineman. He's been on and off the squad. Matt Leiter, tight end. Layden Robinson, offensive guard, and Justin Shorter, who's a wide receiver. They put him on the IR. So that led to, again, since it was such a big surprise, at the time, and not looking, that deep into it originally, I got to give a shout out to this kid right here. He's from, basically my hometown here, out in the Sacramento area in Rockland, California. So I'm happy that a local kid is, getting an opportunity. He's a defensive end. His name is Kane Sloan. He's from North Carolina State, plays for the Wolfpack. He's 6'4", 252 pounds. His PFF grade is 77.3. Over his career, he had like 35 pressures, 35 pressures, 2 sacks, 23 hurries. So he's getting in there, which is good. 10 quarterback hits, 54 solo tackles, 7.5 sacks. And I'm sorry, this is for this year, not his career. And he was made second team All Mountain. So it kind of, again, with the whole Snowden thing, and then seeing, okay, now this gives him an opportunity now to take over Snowden's spot, on the back end of the roster. So just because of that, I think he's got an opportunity to make the squad. So I'm rooting for him. Again, anytime you can root for a hometown kid, let's go. But I'm happy to kind of see him there, and just it's just going to be nice to have that, and I hope he can develop and into something more. But time will tell. But he'll be at the very back end if he makes it. So that is my number 4. Hey, what's up, Cap?
Interesting. No, that was us responding into Cap's channel. So, so in here, my number 4. Now, this is an interesting one. he is a little further down my list, but I think has some interesting skills. Ran a 4.4540, so good speed overall. 5'11", 180 pounds, so not super tall, not super heavy, but kind of in that decent size range for a cornerback. His name is Brent Austin, cornerback from Cal.
Oh, interesting.
Now, Cal's
Cal,
you need some
they put
brains
out
to
good
get into
corners. We
Cal's.
drafted one this
Yeah,
year.
you need some brains to get into that particular college. Yep. And so he's a pretty smart dude. He's got some good skill set. Now, his 2025 stats: 42 tackles, 13 pass breakups, 2 forced fumbles, and half a sack. And overall, super happy with his general statistics. Hearing nothing but great things about him on the field. Going to be a really interesting player for us. And my Denver Broncos have traditionally had really good luck when it comes to those nickel corner type guys. And I really do think that he has what it takes to kind of come into that role. Maybe start on special teams, as you were talking about there, Jack, as a
Mhm.
pathway onto the teams, so to speak. And then really start to fill into his role coming into the future, where maybe he comes into that nickelback or nickel cornerback role for us, in the future as time progresses. So that is Brent Austin out of Cal. He is the fourth UDFA on my list. I would say that he is probably aptly positioned. If I had to put him in my rankings, he would be my fourth on the list in terms of where I see him, in terms of where I am personally most excited about in terms of what he has to offer.
That's
So,
interesting.
Jack,
Cal really is
I don't know if
turning
you
out
have, do you
some,
have any others on your
cornerbacks.
list, or is that it?
Yeah, I got a couple, but I just find it, fascinating with
Yes.
Cal is that, they have turned out a lot of good cornerbacks. The Raiders, they drafted one, picked 175 overall, Aziz Masses out of Cal. And so I just like the fact that that program is turning players. Kind of like, you hear like TCU for like safeties or like certain teams for wide receivers. It's good to see, again, a Northern California school putting them out. And yes, if you're going to Cal, you're going to be intelligent for sure. So since you brought up, a Cal player,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna go over to a different player then. And so I got an extra one. So a wide receiver from Indiana. So another Indiana player. So this is number 3 on my list, and his name is Jonathan Brady. So Jonathan Brady is 5'10", 180. He really didn't do a lot on the offense. He only had 14 receptions for 115 yards. He had 3 TDs, 21 punt returns for 347 yards and 1 TD. So he's just a pure special teamer, kickoff return guy. But since you mentioned Cal, he played at Cal with Mendoza, and then they played together for 3 years. So 2 years at Cal, and then he went over to Indiana when Mendoza went over to Indiana. So I just find that kind of fascinating. But just purely, if he's going to make it, it's only going to be a special teams player, because I figure like if they had that great wide receiver, quarterback connection, he wouldn't be that far back on the depth chart from, again, we just talked about the number 3 wide receiver, EJ Williams for Indiana. So this guy is really like number 4 wide receiver, but special teams only player. But I just wanted to bring him up since we were talking Cal. I just thought that was fascinating. And I got 2 more. So I don't know how many more you got left.
I see. I do one more because I only got one more guy on my list. I kept it to 5.
All right. So again,
So
earlier in the
let's
show, I
hear one
talked
more of
about.
yours, and then go from there.
Okay. So I got one more. So again, earlier in the show, I talked about, most of the Raider Nation was thinking, hey, we're going to go defensive tackle like McDonald. and we didn't do that, and it makes sense. And and not going over him because they moved Lockie Tossi, who talk about a mammoth of a man. I mean, he's 6'6", 373 pounds. They moved him back to nose tackle. So you can see why they didn't feel like that's probably a big pressing need to go out and draft a guy, who's super early when you got other holes on your team to fill. In the 7th round, they drafted a kid from South Carolina. I forgot his name. But he's just kind of he's going to only be like a first and second down, player. So as a UDFA, which I thought I think he could be even better than the guy they got from South Carolina. His name is Gary Smith III. He's out of UCLA. He's 6'2", 319. UCLA site, they had him listed at 340. But again, on the Raiders, website, they had him at 319. He's played over 50 games. He runs a 5.2 40. That's pretty damn fast for a big boy. And he's got like a 20-inch vertical.
Yep.
He started at Duke, then transferred to UCLA. He had 40 tackles, but only a half a sack. So he's not going to be one of those guys that's going to be in the passing game, but as a run stuffer, I think he's just as good as the player they took in the 7th round. So he's going to give him a run for his money.
Yeah. And he could be that guy that makes your roster just because he shows out better than your 7th round pick. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. And the guy in the 7th round is Brandon Cleveland. He's from North Carolina State. He's 6'3", 307 pounds. So I think he's got a shot to actually beat the 7th round pick. And if not, I think he'll make a good practice squad player.
So that'll be interesting. Yeah. Now, I'm going to add one to my list just because it's an interesting one. So how about you give us your last pick, Jack, and I'll finish off with 2 of the Broncos. We'll have
All
a
right.
little bit of a powwow, and then we're going to go into the Chargers, which I believe there are 5. One of them, by the way, I am shocked didn't get drafted, and I have him making the Chargers roster. So
Okay.
let's hear your last one.
All right. Hey, what's up, Biggie? Hey, Biggie, it was good to be on the show with you, brother. So it was nice to meet you. Biggie knows the stuff, that's for sure. All right. So my last guy I have on here, he's a special teamer. His name is Tyler Dzanski. He's a long snapper out of Penn State. He was a finalist for the best long snapper in the country. He's kind of small though. I mean, he's 6'4", but he's only 210 pounds. And not that you have to be the biggest dude, but if he's going to make it, he needs to put on some weight. Again, you're talking the NFL where these guys, you're going to be pushing you, and it's going to be hard to stop somebody and push you back so they can get a hand on the block to kick. But yeah, at 210 pounds, he's got the technique and everything else. He just needs to work on his weight, get his size up. But he's an interesting one because that's the nice thing with, long snappers, one never knows. So it's kind of the flavor of your special teams coach, what you like to have. So yeah, that was my last one.
That's interesting. And your UDFA long snapper may make your roster as nothing more than a cap casualties, cap savings option for you guys. If he is as good or close to the guy you have now, you guys might just move on from your long snapper just for the simple fact of saving, maybe $1 million or something like that, just to kind of keep the costs down in the building. With your current long snapper, it's possible. I've seen my Broncos have done actually that exact same thing at the long snapper position, and it was to save like $1 million, and they ended up doing it. So it's possible. You guys could see that happening with your Las Vegas Raiders. Now, this guy here is So if I had 1A and 1B, he's number 3 on that list. So he's basically this is at the top of my UDFA list for all intents and purposes. This next player, his name is Dasan McCullough.
McCullough. I
He
like that
is
last name.
listed McCullough, correct? It's a great last name. So he is listed on in the draft and all that thing as an outside linebacker from Nebraska, although McCullough is a transfer into Nebraska last season as opposed to someone who started and ended his career there in college. Now, some interesting stats on Mr. Dasan McCullough. McCullough is 6'5", 235 pounds. So he is a well-proportioned human being. He is also the son of an NFL running back whose father played with the Eagles.
Interesting.
Now, here's another interesting tidbit of information. His father, who was the NFL running back, overlapped with the Eagles when none other than Mr. Sean Payton was there as quarterbacks coach.
Oh, look at the connection.
So, so, so there's an interesting connection there in that room. Now, Dasan had 21 tackles. This is last season. 5 of them were behind the line, 2 pass breakups, and 2 sacks. So overall, he was a pretty productive guy. Now, I have him as an inside linebacker. And this is why. He played in college a combination of safety and linebacker. So outside linebacker and safety. So he's got some sideline to sideline quick twitch to him in terms of his skill set. I believe that this guy here is going to be a project for the Broncos for this season with the intention of having him step in, hopefully, by the end of the season or mid-season, or if he shows out, he could just step in right away. You never know. As an additional inside linebacker to do the sideline to sideline dirty work that's required. He's a tackler. He's a machine. He's got the athletic ability. And and by the way, my Broncos have found multiple inside linebackers as UDFAs that have gone on to become incredibly productive NFL players. For Broncos country, one guy that might ring a bell is a gentleman by the name of Wesley Woodyard. He's an inside linebacker and kind of some recency bias. That would be someone that is an undrafted free agent that we had on our team. Another guy that was a later round draft pick, you might remember his name, Danny Trevathan. He was not an undrafted guy, but definitely a later round draft pick. So you don't necessarily expect them to be all world players when they're picked that late in the draft. And then we also have 2 separate undrafted dudes on our team right now in Jordan Turner and Corinne Reed, who both played legitimate, meaningful snaps at our inside linebacker position and played quite well for their rookie seasons on our roster today. So,
did they, for this, the what you looked up on that linebacker, did they kind of break it down a little bit for you? Like, oh, since you said he played safety and outside linebacker, did they say like how many snaps he had, like, at each?
no, I
Since
never
he's
got that.
versatile, we both never got that. Okay, I was curious because then it's like I was wondering, like, for when he's going against a pass, just to kind of see like how much his college team liked him as going up against the pass. So that's why I was asking that question.
Well, in the safety position and stuff, given kind of what it sounds like he was playing, he would be an ideal candidate, like I said, for that sideline to sideline linebacker role because he's
Mm-hmm.
got the twitch to play at the safety position, which he did in college, but he's got the height and size to be a great cover guy. He's 6'5", 235. He is the height of many tight ends or taller than many tight ends in the
Right.
league. So the league right now in today's NFL is using tight ends in those dirty yards in the seam and through the slot and everything, right? So in my opinion, someone like that would be a great answer, the response to the trend that's happening now in the NFL, which is using those big body tight ends for the dirty middle yards in like the seam routes and things of that nature. Again, is he a
I'd be curious
guarantee?
if they
Of
just.
course not. He's the undrafted free agent. There's always going to be
Oh,
a
absolutely.
flyer. So
I'm just kind of curious. I'm wondering if there's. I'm going to guess they probably used him more as a box safety when he did play the safety slot. But that's why I was wondering. I'm like, okay,
I think
or did
so.
they?
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, it makes sense at that size and height, to use him as a box safety. So did he have any stats against the pass, like any pass breakups? I mean, in the way of like, knocking down balls or anything like that.
2 pass breakups is the stat I have for him last season,
Okay.
which at 6'5", 235, that ain't bad. Now it's not like blow your socks off, but as a hybrid kind of mixed kind of player type or mixed role type player, that's not bad at all. Another thing to keep in mind, his signing bonus was $240,000.
Hmm. Wow, another big signing bonus.
So again, that's a big signing bonus for a guy coming over to the Denver Broncos at a position of need, likely at the inside linebacker position. Again, I'm simply throwing that number. Sorry, 245,000. Sorry, was his signing bonus. Not 245,000. But again, I see that as a bit of a sign. The Broncos really like him. They didn't want him anywhere else but on our team. And I think that for that alone, I kind of see a little bit of a writing on the wall.
Right. Yeah. When you're giving that type of money, at
Um,
least
so
you're probably going to make the practice squad if he doesn't make the team itself.
yeah, and I think that you might even see the route that Jordan Turner took. So we had a couple of injuries over the course of the season, and then Jordan Turner eventually was a staple on the 53-man roster as a result of that, but started on the practice squad. So even if he doesn't necessarily make the 53, although I do think that there's a route for him to make the 53 as an inside linebacker, in my opinion. Special teams would be a big start there. So remember your comment about uh, my least favorite signing, Torian York. I see
Mm-hmm.
this guy as the special teams guy. He's got the twitch and the height, and like he ticks all of those extra boxes for me as being a guy that would be excellent as a special teams player as a result of those intangibles. So this guy here, 6'5", 235. Torian York, 5'10", 226. So I got an extra 11. I got an extra basically 10 pounds for argument's sake, and I got like an extra like 6 inches on height,
Right.
which is huge when you're starting to go up against tight ends and other players that are much taller and faster in the NFL.
Well, and
Now I'm going to
follow
throw
the
one
money,
other name out there.
and then I got one more after that. Go
Yeah,
ahead, throw it out.
and the money, the signing. Yeah. So so I got Cam Ross. He's 5'10", 186 pounds. He played at UConn for 2019 to 2023. Then went to James Madison in 2024, and then played his final season uh, at Virginia. He brought in or caught 53 receptions for 543 yards and 2 touchdowns, and he added 171 punt return yards and 266 kickoff return yards.
Oh, very versatile.
Plus, one of those returns was for a touch. Plus, one of those returns was for a touchdown. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Cam Ross ran a 4.36 40 time
Woo!
at the combine.
He's blazing.
Now, rope all of that together, and that gives you another versatile return type guy that could potentially be in the mix. I was talking last year, you know this all too well, that my Broncos were missing a bit of a speed guy on the roster to kind of help stretch the field in a consistent manner. I think Katzis has shown to be a little bit more of a consistent guy in that regards in terms of his film and tape. But I do think that Cam Ross is certainly a guy that ideally you'd might like to see him tucked away on the practice squad, try to develop him, mold his game, and he might be a flyer that you might be able to get onto the 53 every once in a while, and then maybe develop him as a nice extra or additional piece as we start looking at Troy Franklin, Pat Bryant, Marvin Mims, who are all question marks on my wide receiver room. And if this guy pans out, he could well be kind of a receiver of the future, perhaps, if things work in our favor.
Absolutely. And again, with the Mims injury, it's like he sounds kickoffs and punt returns. And with that type of speed, yeah, he can step right in if someone goes down. That's for sure. Great depth.
Yeah.
Wow, nice player.
Yeah. So again, I felt that we were very targeted in some of our pickups in terms of we were trying to hone in on specific guys, and I think that those 6 that I just listed there, they have real intriguing options. They have a real shot in many cases of actually making the roster for my team, in my opinion, in some of those cases. And you hate to see it, but it is inevitable that there will be a handful of teams that will have guys that go down for injuries, and they will come knocking on successful teams' doors to see if they're willing to get rid of guys that they think they may not sign, to try to bolster their team to allow their team to be competitive this season. And I do suspect that, Ben Powers will probably get a few calls just because there's some chatter about him not sticking with the team long term. I do think that Stidham will get some calls if there's a quarterback injury or two in the league, because teams will always want at minimum, a competent backup or at least a starter to make them not look awful if they lose their starter. And I think that other guys like Riley Moss and a few other guys on my roster on my team will start getting some calls if there's some major injuries. And this is when you sometimes get the Godfather offers come through, right? Which is, you
Right.
believe we're going to be super competitive this year, and we're going to take a page out of the Rams playbook and F them picks and go ahead and try to get your guy, right? Go ahead and get your guy and kind of go from
Absolutely.
there. Yeah. So those are my 6 guys that I just kind of want to bring up. You said you had one more, and then
Yeah, I do. I have one more.
close out the show.
He's not as high on my radar, but certain content creators have him towards the top of the list of the UDFAs. His name is Justin Pickett. He came from Duke. He's 6'7", 317 pounds. He's a captain for him. I don't have all the game stats, but he's like over 50 games with them. He's he played tackle, but they list him as a guard. So it looks like he's got that versatility to where he can either play on the outside, play on the inside. And the only other thing I kind of see him more, he's kind of can be a swing, I guess, for either one. So, but I feel like the Raiders' offensive line is pretty full. I think, again, you can get rid of a guy. I think, maybe Jordan Meredith, because he's going to be at the bottom of the roster at this point. Maybe they might want to move. He was a restricted free agent. He's making like $3.8 million. I'm not sure how much of that is guaranteed. But again, if you can save some money and if you can get, similar or any type of production near it at the bottom of your roster, you're probably not going to play. But I think he'll be a guy that, will end up going to the practice squad, just for that depth.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's fair. And I wouldn't necessarily look. This is going to be an unpopular opinion within Raider Nation here, but you had two things going against you, and you can't necessarily think that just because you changed coaching staff, that all of your guys that you currently have on the roster will work out with what you're trying to do now. Almost none of the guys that you have on your roster, with the exception of obviously one or two, were actually picked by your current regime.
You
And
got
so
nine draft picks last year from Spytech that made the
right,
roster.
but that's not sure, but I mean offensive line. So my point is that the Raiders struggled in the run game and pass game overall as the season went on. Let's be honest, like there's a reason
Mm-hmm.
why you ended up picking first in this year's draft. It is what it is.
Right.
That's just a fact, right? Like sorry, but not sorry at the same time. It's like,
Well, yeah.
facts
Hey,
are
Gino
facts,
did something
you know.
right.
Yeah,
Gino,
facts are
G-
facts,
thank you,
right?
Gino.
But at the end of the day, you're going to have some struggling linemen. You're going to have a guy that you think is going to work out that's not going to work well in the system that you're trying to run. And you may have more than one that might fit into that same vein or that same lane there, where all of Raiders Nation be like, I can't believe that guy is not fitting on our team. Like, why isn't he fitting on our team? And,
Totally
you
different
may
scheme.
see, yeah, 100%. But that's my point. So Rodgers, who was starting to look fairly promising at the end of last year when your coaching staff got fired and basically finally put him in, right? And Pete Carroll, like finally we see a dude, hey, he's looking pretty good. Why weren't you playing him before? And that makes sense.
Right.
But the point here ultimately is you're going to have a few surprise guys that are probably not going to play up to the level that you need them to in order for your team to turn the corner, continue the progression, etc. So I would not, let's put it this way, I wouldn't have the opinion that you just espoused on the show here. I would literally say I want a multitude of offensive line talent, especially ones that show positional versatility, guard and tackle. Get them developing within the offensive line system and coach that you have going on right now for your Las Vegas
Mm-hmm.
Raiders. And inevitably, when you have one or two of the guys that you think are going to be starters this year, but turn out maybe not to be, you're going to need to dip into that depth pool to bring them up and play them. And I think that inevitably, keeping more than you think is necessary on your roster and practice squad is probably going to be in your favor, especially given the fact that you've got a rookie quarterback.
Oh, absolutely. Well, we'll see how much or if Mendoza plays, but I totally agree. I
Yeah.
see them keeping 9 offensive linemen. And it's kind of like, most of the players that we had, like, again, like you mentioned, Rodgers and Grant, those guys were both 3rd-round picks last year. I mean,
Yep.
Grant saw 2.5 quarters, so we really don't know what we have with those guys. And again, I agree. I totally agree in a way of like Pete Carroll's scheme versus, Kubiak's scheme. They're totally different. And so we got to see how they all fit in. So I can never have enough offensive line. That's the 3rd time I said it tonight because, again, one never knows. So it's like we're getting all these rookies and they're 2nd-year players, but they're really almost like rookies just for the fact that they didn't play. So it'll be very fascinating to see the battles. And I think a player that they did draft in like zone, they got him in, what was it, the 3rd round. I think he's a player that is almost a plug and play right now for the Raiders. Again, he hasn't played a snap yet, but just seeing it, what Kubiak likes, and I just, reading up on him, I think he fits. So I think he could take a starting spot, but all the other guys, again, Spytech was drafted not for this setup. for the wide zone. So we'll see how they fit in and everything plays out. So that was the one guy. And the reason why I brought him up, because we talked about money, right, for Pickett. So I think he was the highest paid UDFA for the Raiders. They gave him $170,000. So he was the highest one that the Raiders paid for UDFA. So right there, that just kind of tells you he's going to stick around somehow, some way, let it be on the roster, or like I said, go into the practice squad.
Yeah, he's either going to be your practice squad dude, or he's going to be your swing guy that you're going to keep on the active roster. So I like, with that kind of money, that's probably what's going to happen. Now, looking at the Chargers, and DZ, this is for you. I made sure I pulled this up because I know you really did try, and so I want to make sure we covered what I believe is your top 5 UDFA players, and I do have some extra information here that I'll read off on each of them as I go through them. I do not have them in any particular order, but I do have one that I truly believe that the Chargers picked up that I believe has a legitimate shot at making their 53-man roster. And I also thought, honest to goodness, that he was going to be drafted, even if it was in the later rounds, but ended up going undrafted, and the Chargers picked him up, which, to be quite honest, isn't that big of a shocker to me. So, first UDFA that I think is worthy of noting for the Los Angeles Chargers is cornerback Avery Smith out of Toledo. Chargers are in need of a slot cornerback. Smith is definitely the best UDFA corner that is really best suited for that role with the Chargers in terms of what they have. He was quite productive, but he doesn't really have the length and height and size and stuff in order to play on that outside corner, but definitely has the frame and whatnot to potentially, not necessarily to be, but to potentially be a quality slot corner at the NFL, or nickel corner, however you want to call it. Everyone calls them different names, but they're basically the same. And then the Chargers also have an interesting predicament where they are wanting to refuel and rebuild their edge pipeline. And they ended up getting Nadame Tucker out of Western Michigan as an edge player. Now, he's just got some interesting upside. He's had some highs and lows, and some good stuff. You have to see if he can continue that into the NFL. So he broke out in a big way this past season at Western Michigan under Chris O'Leary. He had 21.5 tackles for loss and 14.5 sacks. Wow. So let that sink in. 14.5 sacks as an edge, and end up going undrafted. Now, if he can carry that through with the Chargers coaching staff, rather, he could be a tremendous asset for that team, and could be, we'll call it the Chargers version of, like a Jonathan Cooper. Jonathan Cooper was drafted by my Denver Broncos in the 7th round and has been one of the top tier, or at least an upper echelon edge at the NFL level for the last couple of years for my Denver Broncos, complementing Nick Benito, who has been on a rather rapid ascension in those same last 2 years for my Broncos, both of which ended up with favorable contract extensions with my Denver Broncos. And again, the Chargers are in need of that edge outside linebacker pipeline on their team, and this could well be one guy to plug into that group. Now, this is the guy that I was.
I got one of my favorite one that out of for DZ's Chargers is they picked up a player that I have drafted in mock drafts. They had him listed as a top 100 player, and he slid to be a UDFA. It's an Oregon Ducks, and that's Isaiah World.
You got to slow yourself. That's my favorite guy that they picked up.
Yeah, me too.
You got to calm down. That's my guy. So I actually had him one, I wanted my Broncos to bring him in as a UDFA, so let's just put it that way. And then number two,
Want to.
I actually wouldn't have I wouldn't have been upset, as it were, if my Broncos brought him in the seventh round to
Right?
just secure his services. Right? I mean,
Me
we had the
too.
last two picks. No, but we had the last two picks of the draft. Certainly, an offensive tackle is more valuable than a tight end or an inside linebacker. And Isaiah World is certainly someone that I had likely getting drafted. So, um, so he's officially listed at 6'5.5" as terms of his height, which is a far cry from what Oregon listed him at as 6'8". But 6'5.5" is still no slouch.
No, that's
That's a
tall.
tall dude. That's a tall dude. Um, so there's that, and
Well,
he's
he's a
just
big
got a
boy.
tremendous amount of upside. He had some good blocks. He played well. He got the dirty yards. He did a bunch of great stuff to help his team out at Oregon, and I really did think that he had real potential to be drafted, not even in the late round of the draft, but at least in like the fifth or sixth round, if but for nothing else other than positional value.
Right. And he can learn, a little bit better technique. I think that's the part of the reason why he was kind of erratic, but you still see it. You can still see it in him. I mean, he's huge. He's 323 pounds and he's got
Yes.
34.5-inch arms. So he's
Mhm.
got all the intangibles again at a premium position to play, step in
Yep.
and go at it like a right tackle.
100%. 100%. So he was my favorite pickup for the Chargers as a UDFA, in my
Mine
opinion.
too.
I thought that he's got the offensive tackle pedigree. The Chargers struggled in that regard last year. All of the things like, and they also drafted my guy that I wanted my Broncos to draft instead of Caden, whatever his name is.
Caden
Whatever.
Pacey. Caden
Sure.
Pacey.
Sure. um, so the Chargers drafted Travis Burke, offensive tackle, 6'9", 315 pounds. That
Another
was
big
my
boy.
dude. That was my dude. They drafted him in the fourth. I wanted him. I had him hopefully sliding to the fifth. I obviously didn't get that wish, but they drafted him in the fourth. And to me, Travis Burke was a natural right tackle, a mauler, a big dude that just played really angry. That's it should come as no surprise that that's what I want to my offensive lineman. And Travis Burke, his biggest positive coming out of college is he's a vicious run blocker. And you've heard me say it more than once on the show.
Oh
In my
yeah.
opinion, run blocking is something that can't really be taught because it is largely like a mental game for these guys. It is you either have that like aggressive mindset in you or you don't. Now, I do believe that a run blocker can be taught the proper technique for pass pro, but I don't think it is very easy for a pass pro guy to learn how to be more aggressive and be a better run blocker. I think that largely it's a one-way trip. You're either a aggressive run blocker and then you can learn how to pass pro, or you're kind of a nothing but technique guy in the pass game and you're amazing, but you will never be an excellent run blocker. And that's my general thought on the offensive line position in that regard. But again, so let's keep this in mind. Chargers got Travis Burke, 6'9", 315 offensive tackle, spectacular option there for them. And then undrafted free agent, they go out and bring in Isaiah World, Oregon tackle, 6'5", almost 6'6". So that tells you all you need to know. They prioritized ensuring that they went out and brought in tackles to be able to plug and play for their two injured tackles if
Well,
something like that were to happen again.
I was trying to look it up. Didn't they draft as well? Like again, you mentioned Burke. I think they drafted 2 other offensive linemen as well too. So they really went heavy. They learned their lesson from last year, going, hey, we don't want to have to go through that again. We don't want that drop off like we had, the previous year. Their
Yeah,
offensive line's going to be stout.
well, when they were healthy, they were difficult to play against, to say the least.
Right.
And they've now bolstered that position group with young talent that are of a certain mindset that they will be very difficult to play against. Now, next one on the list. We got one more after this one. Lander, Lander Barton, out of Utah, linebacker. You might recognize the Barton last name. That is the younger brother of Cody Barton, who is a former inside linebacker of my Denver Broncos.
Runs in the family.
Not last season, the season before. And so this is quite interesting. I think this is going to be an interesting pickup for them. The article that I'm looking at here with the listing of these guys actually believes that Lander may just be in the right place at the right time because the Chargers are actually in need of inside linebacker help. Lander could be that guy. And I think it'll be a really interesting pickup for them at the inside backer position. And he has that lunch pail, hard hat style mentality to him, kind of like his brother. Now, last one that I have on my list for DZ's Los Angeles Chargers. Jacob Spomer, Fresno State center. He is he was a starting left tackle. But he's a little light. Needs to eat a handful of cheeseburgers. Maybe a few handfuls of cheeseburgers. To put things in perspective, he played the left tackle position at 6'3", 290 pounds.
Wow, 290?
And he held it down and played quite well. So the reason why he really went undrafted is that he's just in that like really weird unknown height size combo range, right? Which is, NFL teams are just like risk adverse when it comes to that kind of stuff. So he could well be a real steal. Again, if he eats, a buffet of cheeseburgers every other night, but
Right.
he has the potential, right? And the important thing is that he's used to dealing with guys that are faster twitch, that are harder to hold up, and all that kind of stuff. And so he's likely not going to get tricked or fooled by the quick twitch hand moves that guys would otherwise get bogged down with in the interior. He's going to read through that and position himself to just lock that down and be like, you can miss me with that crap. I got that covered. Don't worry about it. What he just needs to worry about is basically bulking himself up, get his rear end a little bit heavier. And again, cheeseburgers, lots and lots of cheeseburgers.
Yeah, a lot with extra cheese on there.
Yeah. So those are the 5. Go ahead.
Oh no, those are the 5 for the trip. I'm just saying it's amazing. You're considered, you're light when you're basically 290 pounds. I mean, that's a big human being. That just shows that, today's NFL, how big everybody is.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a fair point, right? Like in normal life, in the real world, if your buddy was 6'3" and 290, you'd be like, that's my enormous friend,
Right.
right? Like that's my enormous friend. Nobody messes with us when that dude's with us, right? And then in the NFL, they're like, dude, you need to get bigger.
Yeah.
It's
Not
like,
big
what?
enough.
It's like, what? So it really does show we as fanalists, we always forget actually when we're looking at the stats and the information and everything here that in order to even make it in the NFL, you need to already be in like the top 5% to even be considered to walk through the door.
Right.
And then on top of that, you go through a whole bunch of additional filters after that. Right?
You got to
And
have the talent, on
yeah,
top of it. So
yeah.
this is pretty.
I
This has
mean,
been an interesting show, to say the least. It's like
yeah, yeah.
getting to know. I probably wouldn't have done a lot of research on these UDFAs, except for coming on to the show to help out Nav and yourself and DZ.
Mhm.
But it was a fun conversation to have about these potentials, and to see how that it all kind of plays out, and then kind of circle back at the end after when the roster is set, to see how many of these guys did make it, how many of these guys made the practice squad. So it'll be fascinating.
Well, Jack, the other thing to consider is how many of your UDFAs. So this is where it gets really interesting. So my Denver Broncos have had a long-standing streak in the NFL of having a UDFA make the 53-man roster for like every year but one. Like it's something crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Like it's like
Mhm.
a ridiculous stat. We had a couple years there where 3 UDFAs made the roster and like 2 of them became all-pro starters or something. Like it was like ridiculous.
That is ridiculous.
Like ridiculous, like just ridiculous, right? So the Denver Broncos have a track record of identifying and picking up not just good talent, but like incredible talent in the UDFA talent pool. And so as a result of that, ever since I've been a Broncos fan, the UDFA like part of the draft for me is just as exciting as the actual draft itself. So
Yeah,
as an
this year
example,
I would say I'm a little more excited because, again, like I mentioned earlier in the show, in the last 3 years Raiders they're not the same way. They don't act like your
mhm,
Broncos and be able to pick up these guys. They've only had 2 UDFAs in the last 3 years.
mhm. So Corinne Reed, inside linebacker last year, was a UDFA 53-man signing that made the roster at the 53 roster cut, like the 53-man roster cut. Shortly thereafter, we had another UDFA, Jordan Turner, also at the inside linebacker position, make his way onto the 53-man roster just after the 53-man roster cut.
Wow.
Jaleel
All right, I
McLaughlin,
want some of that
UDFA.
luck.
Yeah.
I want some of that
And
luck.
so what you're getting when you get these UDFAs and you're able to pick out of like a talent pool that didn't quite make the draft is you're getting value players because you're not paying them much.
Mm-hmm.
And if you get high contribution from those players, you are so far ahead of the curve in terms of the rest of the league that
Right.
you're able to excel when the other teams are struggling to get by and get into the positions that they're at. And so that's really where the value comes for your team, right? The true value comes for your team where you get these guys, and if they become real deal contributors, it literally makes all of the difference in the world from a cap space. And
Yep.
also, when you build up a reputation of being able to bring in an undrafted free agent and have one make the roster almost every year, you're then able to bring in some of the best UDFA talent where you're able to almost perpetuate the cycle every year, year over year over year over year, and keeping the cost controlled player or two or three and make your team that much better over time.
Absolutely. And it frees up, like you just said, it does free up that salary cap to go after the guys that you really want to target to.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And so this is going to be a really interesting one for me to see where these guys land, how they end up, where they end up, all that kind of stuff. Your Raiders picked up a few guys like Hemby, I think is one guy that I've personally been eyeing that you picked up that you mentioned already earlier in the show. He's a
Mm-hmm.
dude that has every possibility of making your 53-man roster. And if he doesn't make yours, he will likely end up on someone else's.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
then,
I can't picture him
right?
not making the squad.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the other interesting piece in all of this is that sometimes the guy that you think should have made your roster, you start second guessing your coaching staff why he went to another roster, and then you see that dude over on another team kill it.
Oh, that's the
And
worst.
that's part of what I love about no, but that's part of what I love about the UDFA side of things is you get to play like armchair GM as a fanalist and start calling your shots as you see guys come out. I'll give you one example of a guy that I called making my 53-man roster in the year that he was brought in as a Bronco, and that is none other than CJ Anderson,
Running back, right?
running back out of
Yep.
Cal State. Now, I saw him come through the running back ranks, and I was like, that guy's making the roster. I had Broncos country in the forums and everywhere call me crazy. And it's like, I'm telling you, that dude is making the roster. I said, like, the one thing that I liked about him, and I know that it's a very coveted trait out of running backs at the NFL level, is when he gets hit, his legs move, but his pads stay square. And you saw that in his college tape. So his legs shift out like this, like a swivel, but his pads
Mm-hmm.
stay completely perpendicular to the ground or parallel. They stay
Like Gumby.
parallel to the ground. Yeah. And so I was like, he's making the roster. And it's like, why is he making the roster? It's like, one, he's like 5'8" and 245 pounds. So the dude's just a bowling ball. And then number two, his pad level never changes. So he gets hit 4 times and he stays on his feet after all 4 hits because his pads don't ever shift. So he never topples over. And
Nice
sure
problem
enough,
to
he
have.
made the 50. Yeah, and sure enough, he made the 53-man roster. But again, that's an example. My Denver Broncos have got a long-standing track record of
Your
finding
team does.
gems, just like CJ Anderson, just like Chris Harris Jr., just like other guys, just like those two and others. So this is one of my favorite parts of the draft. One of my favorite parts of the offseason here is reviewing UDFAs, seeing the small school guys that make it, and then see how my team and others do with those gifted draft picks, um, and see if any of them can make the roster and usurp either starters or even drafted players just because they're too good to ignore. So,
Sorry about that.
anywho,
I was going to type you something
um,
in the.
I think that'll I think that'll do it for the show tonight, though. We've covered off the Chargers, covered off the Broncos, and covered off the Las Vegas Raiders. We are still searching, however, for, and I'm going to bring up this comment here, a Chiefs fan to come in as a panelist. The last one ran away. It's fine. I realize your team had a bit of a dip, and I get it. You don't necessarily want to be on with every other team in the division, especially the two of them that are on an upwards trajectory. I get it. However, we are looking for a Chiefs fan to come in and join us here on the Wild Wild West. talk about all 4 teams, hopefully as evenly as we possibly can on the show. If you happen to have a Chiefs fan that you'd like to stop in and represent their team, please go ahead and reach out and give us a shout. We have some rules on the show where we are as respectful as we possibly can be of each other and our teams. After all, we are all football fans. We all might be rivals, and we all may have, we'll call it, differing opinions on Sundays in terms of who should win.
Mm-hmm.
But we do need to be respectful about each and every other team and bring up fair points on each and every team, even if we all do wear our own varying colored glasses when we do our analysis. So with that in mind, if you do know a Chiefs fan, have them apply within, reach out to myself, Nav, or DZ, or Jack for that matter. He'll put them in touch with either of us as well, and we will bring them in and see if they can work out as the Chiefs representative on this Wild Wild West podcast. Jack, anything else to send us off with to the Raiders fans here?
It was just great to see you, and thank you everyone in the chat for stopping by, and have a great rest of the evening.
I agree. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Wild Wild West podcast for today's date, May 6th, 2026, where the West Side is the best side. Peace!
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Simcoe's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast's racking up the flight miles. So high, I might never come down, so what, this is my lifestyle. Wait a minute,